digital equity, the next great equalizer. So this is really covering the role of technology-based innovation playing or can play to transform livability, sustainability, mobility, workability for all communities and the people in our cities. And the moderator of this panel will be Mr. Will Preble, who I've had the pleasure to work with. We've co-founded Aeterna together, and this guy's incredible. He's the brains, and I'm the people guy. So he's gonna share his knowledge with you guys and take over from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Tayo, for that flattering intro. I have a background in technology, like Tayo mentioned. I'm the CEO of Aeterna Media, which is a creative agency that's really focused on socially conscious marketing, but also infusing technology into our work, and I'm a co-founder of Smart North. And for me, I have a background in technology. I have a data science degree. I worked in machine learning in the corporate world for a couple years, and I really realized at a young age that given my education, given my privilege, even just my skin color, the position I was put into in life, I have a perspective and was given a perspective on what is possible for me with technology and what was possible for me to do as a career path, and I was able to take advantage of that. But as I've become more aware, as I've become more socially conscious and worked with incredible partners like PJ, like Tayo, and really started to get more active in different communities around Minneapolis, I've realized that not everyone has that access, right? But there's such an incredible opportunity to use technology and to use design right now as an equalizer, especially coming out of 2020, coming out of a year that was really a reset in a lot of ways, to come back, to use Tom Fisher's words, to build back better, and to reimagine how we can use technology to create equity, and especially digital equity, so that everyone has access to the opportunities that are now present in our world today because of advancements of technology, which is only increasing at a greater and greater rate. So with that, we have an incredible panel today, and I'd just like to start by having everyone give a quick intro of who you are and what are you or your organization doing to increase equity through technology or design in the communities that you serve. So we'll start over here with Tyler.
Howdy, everybody. My name is Tyler Milligan with Milligan Partners. I'm the managing partner at Milligan Partners. We've been a small consulting firm for 9 years, and we work in the transportation space. We generally deal with revenue-based transportation services such as toll roads, and within our company, we focus, a lot of our experience involves interagency transactions. And so we've started to expand our policy work. We have a sister company that does blockchain research and development, and we focused that effort around identifying how blockchain can expand opportunities within social services, how it can expand transportation through various modes, because even within the tolling space, as our transportation funding becomes a problem, tolling is still considered its own little silo. However, it fits into the larger multimodal transportation experience for everyone. So that's been key for us.
Hi, my name is PJ Hill. I am a financial advisor for North Rock Partners and also a developer. And I think for me, how I'm using technology to really benefit the community, one way is through financial literacy. I truly believe a lot of these problems that we deal with in society come from the economic inequalities that live within society. So, the buildings that I own, for the families that live in the building, how do I help them build their credit? How do I teach them financial seminars using technology to help them participate in the American dream? So that's one way. And then I also own a lot of commercial space. And in those commercial spaces, how do I give small entrepreneurs opportunities to come into affordable commercial spaces, but also bring in organizations like Smart North and BestBuy to offer technology to the community to help be the great equalizer and to uplift the community and to really change the landscape of the community. And one thing that's important to me is I'm a historian, so back in the early days when real estate, there was a lot of barriers to entry for minorities and BIPOC communities. So now moving into this digital real estate, how do we make sure that we lower those barriers to entry and so everybody can participate in this game of technology?
Andrea.
Hi, everyone. I'm Andrea Wood. I'm the Vice President for Social Impact for BestBuy. And we are really focused on providing access, opportunities, training, and mentorship for youth from disinvested communities to get the tech training, the know-how, and the opportunities really to explore tech careers and get into tech careers. That's also true with entrepreneurship as well, helping them envision themselves as business owners and starting their own businesses. So the key way we do that is through our BestBuy Teen Tech Center program. These are free after-school state-of-the-art tech spaces. We work with communities and disinvested communities to put them in places where youth can access them and really focus on how do we support teens to get the training they need, the mentorship they need, and ultimately pursue careers in technology, entrepreneurship, and innovation. We have 8 of them in the Twin Cities right now. We're probably going to double that number, and we have about 50 across the country, and we'll also be doubling that number as well. So we are on a big expansion plan to serve more youth across the country.
Good morning. I'm Gloria Jeff. I'm with the Minnesota Department of Transportation. I work in the Twin Cities area or our Metro District, where I serve as the livability director. My career in transportation has been pretty lengthy. I've served everywhere from Wichita, Kansas, to the city of Los Angeles, to being the chief executive for the state of Michigan. But today in Minnesota, the Department of Transportation focuses on technology and equity in a couple of ways. We've established an equity lens by which we evaluate any proposed new policies, new program initiatives, and that we're beginning to introduce into our project arena to evaluate the equity impacts of proposed actions by the agency. We also have begun to adopt the philosophy articulated by our partners at the federal level that in the 20th century, we built the infrastructure to move people from point A to point B. The challenge in the 21st century, really beginning with this decade, is to focus on how do we make sure that there is an equitable access to the quality of life and the opportunities that people need or want for their day-to-day activities. The difference being, yes, we built a great world-class system in the 20th century. Today it isn't about simply building new, it is about how do people want to use it and what does it provide access to. In addition to those couple of programs, we also have an aggressive program throughout the state in which we are engaging with school districts to introduce STEM opportunities within those K through 12 systems, where we have members of our team come in and talk about engineering, conduct competitions to help them see, for example, can you build a toothpick bridge that can support an egg that is not hard-boiled? And what does it take to do that? What does it take to understand how people decide to walk or to ride their bicycles? All of those are things we're beginning to introduce into the system. We are very much focused on the fact that our technology and its advances are one piece of it. We have a connected and autonomous vehicle program that is among the nation's leading, and we recognize that we simply can't talk to the automobile manufacturers about how to make that a great piece of their new equipment, but really begin to talk about how does that benefit everybody? What information are we gathering? How do we share that information in a way that's meaningful to folks? And then we also have to recognize that there has to be a balancing act. This idea that we have privilege is an important one. And the fact that we have that privilege really does lead us at times to forget that I may be able to afford a connected vehicle. I may be able to live within a community where within a 15-minute walk, I have 5 or 6 choices of places to buy groceries or to buy clothing or to do whatever, but that's not true for everybody. And so when we talk about the model to follow as a 15-minute city, we have to talk about who is in that community and what are their needs, what are their wants, what are their cultures. I mean, for some people, worship on a regular basis may not be a priority. For other folks, it may not just be that I have a place to worship, but I need a place to worship that reflects my cultural and personal needs and wants, and those may not be placed every 15 minutes. And so that's part of the balancing act we have to strike as we look at new technology, as we look at connected and automated vehicles. I'm excited to be in this space because I'm at a point in my career where I can be the thorn under the burr that says, excuse me, pardon me, yes, I know all of your language, yes, I'm learned and have the degree in that, but did you think about when you widen that sidewalk, is it not just wide enough for a bike, but is it wide enough for the mother with the toddler to get the second snatch in as the, the toddler decides, you know what, I really need to get that ball that I see across the street, with no awareness that there are 55-foot-long trucks barreling along. Those are just large tinker toys to them. So she doesn't need just the first snatch distance, she needs the second snatch distance. So it's thinking about those kinds of things. So technology, while it's important, has to be a balancing act. It can be the new divider or it can be the new uniter.
Good morning, I'm Richard Graves. I'm the director of the Center for Sustainable Building Research in the College of Design at the University of Minnesota. And we work on what a vision for what the future of development should be in Minnesota. And in the work that we do, I think there's a couple of core beliefs that relate to this panel. And one is that, you know, in the past, sustainable development has focused on how to be less bad. And a lot of our work is focusing on that's a pretty low bar if we're creating aspirations for what we should develop. We should be asking the question, what does good look like? And as we create development, can we be healing relationships in social systems and environmental systems as we do that development work? And because of that, you can tell in the words of them saying, we for a long time have believed it's a false dichotomy to say we need to have either social justice or environmental justice, and the two are inextricably linked in the development work that we do, so we need to be trying to accomplish our goals in both spaces at the same time. And not only that, we think we need to focus on social systems and social justice first, and then come and connect that to some of the environmental goals we have for development. And lastly, you know, a lot of our work we do sustainable building guidelines for all state-funded construction in the state. And then a new program we've been working on for the last 3 years is called 21st Century Development, where we're setting out case studies of model developments around the world for people to use as resources, and then a series of guidelines from standard development all the way to regenerative development that can guide future developments in Minnesota and anywhere really across the spectrum of things, from site factors to equitable development factors to energy and climate. So that's a program we're really excited about, and we've been working with the design and development community, and this fall we're kicking off work with neighborhoods and communities to use it as a tool to create community vision ahead of development in their neighborhood, which we think will kind of strengthen the development process for everybody. So.
Awesome, thank you. So as we look at digital equity, it's important to look at some of the technologies that are driving this transformational opportunity and time of opportunity right now. So I want to open this question up to the panel. What technology or what technological development in the last 5 years are you most excited about as an opportunity to create social change, and what might be some of the challenges as we look at implementing that technology at scale?
I could start. So social media, I think both scares the hell out of me, but I think also has the potential to increase engagement for some of the projects. So for instance, during the pandemic, we thought it'd be really difficult to engage communities in some development projects because we're disconnected, we're only online, and we actually had a couple of projects that we had more engagement, more people, larger cross sections of people connecting and giving input. However, at the same time, I think it's two sides of a coin where we see how that can also be a system that just becomes an echo chamber and kind of reestablishes the classic power relationships if it's not used effectively. So powerful social media, powerful tool. We could use it as a tool for good increased engagement, but we need to be cautious.
I think as a follow-up to that, the fact that we have so many platforms that are available for meetings, whether they are business meetings where we're talking about what is the latest project, how do we engage with the community, how do we get those community members' input in a meaningful way in the decision making, but it's also a great way for maintaining connections between communities, between social groups, between cultural groups. I don't know how many times we have seen not only the great, I'm zoomed out in talking about what's happened with business meetings, but it's a great way to stay in contact with nieces and nephews and grandkids. My soon-to-be 3-year-old grand has never seen me person to person. My biggest concern is that when he finally meets me face to face, he's going to think I'm one of his TV cartoon characters come to life, because he's only seen me in that context. But it's a great way of staying in contact with folks. I think the other element of it is in some cultures, there are a number of activities that the ability to stream has really helped, whether it's worship services for the faith-based community, whether it is for extended social service organizations like the Black Panhellenic organizations and how they stay involved in their community, whether it's social action groups and their abilities to move forward and engage in social activities in a way. So I think that you're right on the money as you talk about social media and the streaming platforms, but it is also a two-edged sword. It is where those with a particular point of view have been successful in isolating, in bringing attention only to the negatives and not providing the same forum. We have a digital divide where there are as many folks as we may want to be engaged in the activities, but based on income, based on race, based on placement in a metropolitan area, they don't have access to those technologies that make such a tremendous difference.
And I would also say I think the democratization of business startup tools. So, it is easier now than ever in some ways to be able to start up a business, and we're seeing that with the youth in our teen tech centers who just have amazing ideas. We've had so many businesses just start out of those tech centers, from photography to graphic design. We actually had a cosmetics business that started out of our Minneapolis library location. So, being able to think of an idea and then have access to the technology, that's the piece that we're trying to provide at the tech centers, and the mentoring and the support to be able to start up a business is really, I think, revolutionary. I think what we need to do, though, is make sure that those young people have the support and the coaching and the mentoring that they need to make sure that their businesses are successful.
Go ahead, Tyler.
Real quick, one comment that came to mind is connected vehicles. The connected vehicle space is significant from a transportation perspective in that even if you start from the safety considerations, beginning to allow for connected vehicles to pass data from vehicle to vehicle or vehicle to infrastructure, you can start to improve safety, the safety of the roadway, safety of pedestrians around the roadway in a way that we've never, ever been able to contemplate. The challenges that exist around that space, though, is right now the majority, not so much at the autonomous vehicle space, but the autonomous vehicle space is driving some of this discussion, in that the standards are being driven by the private, the manufacturers or the manufacturing associations, and I think they state that they are looking out for the best interests of the passenger in the vehicle. However, I think from a governmental perspective, we all want to make sure that the government has a strong voice in the conversation. Another challenge is that the connected vehicle space implies that these are newer vehicles with the newer technology, which typically includes significant cost that's added to the vehicle. These items won't be a standard option in the vehicle for years to come. But I think if anything, the value here is that a portion of the vehicles within a corridor can be connected and still provide a significant value to the operators of that facility. So at least, if anything, we can baby step our way forward into a place where we have more data, more information, and an opportunity to make better decisions around how we move these vehicles, be it cars, buses. You can even communicate with micromobility tools to help customers understand that they need to take a different route. So it really opens the door to changing how we understand our space and communicate back to those customers, those users, or those vehicles digitally.
Thank you. So I want to take a turn here and address a question. I think we'll start here with you, PJ, and maybe jump in, Andrea, if you feel a need with some of the incredible work you guys are doing. I want to talk about how corporations and the community are working together to address that issue that a few of you have brought up, which is, really access is one of the biggest problems right now. There's technology, there's a lot of opportunity to use that technology, but not everyone has access to it, right? So PJ, as a community leader in Minneapolis, how are you addressing access to technology in the communities that you serve?
No, that's a great question, Will. I think how I lower some of them barriers is to partner with corporations, and I use this terminology. Corporations need to transition their thinking from doing things for community to doing things with community. How do we co-create, and then how do we start? I mean, from a corporation or a philanthropy standpoint, how do you start from a cultural residency? Like, how do I understand what the community needs? How do I understand the dynamics of this community? And then how do I back into how can I invest in this community alongside of the community to really make a difference? And so with buying my property in George Floyd Square, to partner with some of the corporations who have desired to do the great work, like a BestBuy, like a Smart North, and how do we come in and provide the greatest impact? But not only impact with the technology, but how do we create a safe space to use the technology, to everybody's point, because technology can do harm to the community as well if it's not garnered in the right way. So how do we give the right access and use it as a tool and an environment that's conducive for growth so that we can really impact the community in a quantifiable way?
Right, and a really good point around doing it with the community and not for the community, and that's really a key tenet of what we're doing with the Teen Tech Centers. We look for community organizations who are already serving youth in those neighborhoods and partner with them to make sure that we're meeting the needs of that community. I would also say it's not just about access to tech. If it was just access to tech, we would just throw tech centers all over the place. But it's also about the mentoring, the coaching, the support that BestBuy and our employees and our executives can provide. And so part of what we're doing is saying, okay, Teen Tech Centers, that's the first step. The second step is, how do we make sure that teens in those centers are getting the opportunities that they need? How are we opening doors for them? How are we supporting them throughout their entire process? So it's not just about getting them through school and graduating from high school, but no, what's your plan after high school? How can we support you? If that's going right into the job market, can we help you with a job opportunity, right? Or can we help you get access to a place where you want to work? If it's going into post-secondary, let's talk about scholarships or credentialing or coding boot camps, all of those things. We're looking to say, let's do surround services to make sure that those youth are set up for success and we're able to support them throughout the beginnings of their career.
Tyler, you mentioned blockchain a little bit ago, and I wanted to come back to that because I know that there's a lot of questions and a lot of mystery surrounding blockchain right now, but it is absolutely a revolutionary technology. So can you tell us, just a little bit about how you envision blockchain creating more equity as a technology in our communities?
Sure. Thank you. I think it's important when we talk about blockchain, when you look at what's in the news, you see a lot about cryptocurrency and the activities and funding that's followed cryptocurrency. What's not discussed on a regular basis is actually there's a concept, and I should mention from a cryptocurrency perspective, that's a public experience. If you have a wallet on your phone and you have cryptocurrency on that, you're participating in a public blockchain that exists across the world, and you and everyone else can coexist within that space. Now that's the amazing part. That's step one, is that you're able to download a wallet or buy a wallet. You can choose to move money into that wallet, and then you can buy cryptocurrency from someone you've never met, which was never possible before blockchain. It did not exist. The ability for that to happen did not exist. And that right there, the ability to trust that transaction, is what then carries over in what's called a permission blockchain. And there's more exciting opportunities within the permission blockchain space, because what that means is that you're not having to deal with all of the energy issues that you've seen in the news about burning. You've got, like for example, there's private investors that are building solar panel farms just to power their blockchain or their Bitcoin mining farms. Within the permission space, that's where you start to look at how can corporations, how can agencies, how can more structured entities cooperate. And what happens then is that it ties into a data sharing experience. And what's exciting for me in the blockchain space and the permission blockchain space is that we see within the government experience, with most of our clients are government based, is that they're typically sharing some form of data for some specific purpose that is critical to their business needs. And when you start to look at the data sharing needs that agencies have, especially from a social perspective and social equity perspective, it's been a difficult discussion, because from a user perspective, the experience doesn't have to change, but from a technological perspective, it's a significant step forward. So having a conversation has been very difficult to help the technologists understand why should they invest, why should they step away from their sunk costs and move to this bleeding edge technology that may or may not make their daily life experience better. But in reality, it can help decrease costs, it can help improve fraud, and even from our friends to the North Canada, they're actually developing what's called the Pan-Canadian Trust Framework. And they've identified that blockchain will play a significant role in the digital ID and digital identity space, because they want to expand and digitize your identification tools, or at least in Canada they do, so that they can begin to reduce cost, improve fraud, and it really starts to open up opportunities. And we also see how that can be used for transit and to engage people within multimodal transportation experiences. We've seen where in large urban areas like the Twin Cities, or even in Dallas where I'm from, or in Houston, where you have agencies that choose not to participate because technologically it's hard. And they're using old technologies that were implemented and matured 25 years ago. And there's new technologies and opportunities that blockchain can present that can reduce cost, improve the data sharing opportunity, and even bring in private partners into the public space that also wasn't necessarily possible before in the past. So, there's huge opportunities, but admittedly we're still to some degree on the bleeding edge, and that's a challenge as well.
Thank you, Tyler. So as you mentioned, there's obviously some incredible positives to adopting new technologies like a blockchain. However, there are also challenges, and you started to, I think, address this a little bit, Gloria and Richard as well. For you, when you're thinking about moving into a new community and bringing technology to that community, or developing with technology and looking at equity, what are some of the challenges that come along with technological advancements when you're addressing it from a holistic perspective and looking at equity?
In the history of the Minnesota Department of Transportation, there is no new. We've been there before. The sins of the 1950s and 60s are still very much a part of the community's memory. And so when we come into a community with a proposed project, a proposed improvement, what's critical for us is to, as has been mentioned, work with the community, not work for the community. It is to cast the net as wide as we possibly can, recognizing that there are folks who are part of national advocacy organizations that have a particular view about transportation, and their voices need to be heard. There are the voices of those who live in the community but are relatively new to that community, and they have a perspective that's important. You have the folks that were there through the good times, through the bad times, and now what may be the good times. And it is making sure that we utilize technology in that engagement, but also do the thing that is truly uncomfortable, which is we make them part of the decision-making process. I'm an engineer, I'm an urban planner. I have initials after my name. It means that I've achieved a particular level of knowledge and success. And what I have to recognize is that while I have all those wonderful things, Grandma may be able to break it down in ways that have nothing to do with all the initials behind my name, but are much more insightful about the community. And it's learning to value that lived experience as much as what technology tells me. Because sometimes there are improvements in technology that don't reflect the lived experience, that don't help the lived experience. And so you have to make sure that those folks not only are planned with, but they actually see themselves as part of the decision-making process, and that their lived experience is as valuable as folks like me with initials after our name.
Yes, so for the work I do with thinking about technology, there's a reading that I give to my students to think about, and I think it applies to technology. Technology is just a tool, and this reading I give my students is titled "Don't Be a Tool," which is don't confuse, tools with kind of core solutions. The tools are helping you get to those things. So I think that's one cautionary tale, is don't get it's really, and I see it all the time, you get fixated on making cool tools, but unless they're solving core structural challenges that we have, then what are we using it for? And so I think, so what we see in the development community, some of our core challenges are financing, access to financing for new developers, developers of color, developers from disadvantaged. Huge barrier, structural barrier. It's there right now. Go to a big bank and try to get financing for your development project. So things like blockchain, alternative sources of financing could be a solution to that, but let's see. It could, can it fill that gap? Authentic community engagement, like we talked about before, so that you can really tap into the embedded knowledge in a community to let that drive development, so you're co-evolving win-win solutions that really create good there. And then I think in the building, it's really challenging to work in the built environment space, because it's so behind all other industries in terms of adopting technology, taking advantage of efficiencies. However, a lot of our challenge there with building technologies are we have a lot of niche technologies that are really expensive now, that the challenge in the short term is driving the cost of those down, so that they're cost effective and we can get them into the built environment to do the things that we want to do.
So looking at everything we've discussed and the moment in time that we're in, why is right now an incredibly important time to be having this discussion? And what are you guys most excited about in the next year that you or your organization are doing in the communities with technology?
I'll start. All right, go ahead, Ms. Gloria.
Why now? We have a federal, in transportation, we have a federal administration that is saying now is the time to deal with infrastructure, and that it's not just about the things, it's about the people. So why now? We finally have a vision. Whether you agree with how to pay for it or not is not the matter. It is a vision that says we need to focus on people, we need to focus on how people use the things that we have built, and most critically, let us make sure that everybody has a fair distribution of the benefits as well as the burdens. Because we figured out how to not be fair in burdens. We now have to figure out how to be fair in benefits. So why now? because we finally have a vision for this country that encompasses not just how do I build a better road, how do I provide a better transit system, how do I provide a better maritime operation, but one that says how people use the system, what the system allows people to do is the critical question to be answered. That's why now. We've never really posed that as a question as transportation, whether it's at the federal level, the local level, or for that matter, even in the private sector. It is about how do we provide access to opportunity.
Just to follow that up, amazing answer. But I think why now as well for me, being a young black man from the community, was COVID and George Floyd's death taught me a lot. I was out doing protests with Will and Tayo, and because of technology, you see that the young people showed up in droves. It doesn't matter what color you are. And so now how do we harness that energy and to start to turn a new leaf in America by using technology as that great equalizer to really move the ball forward? I think though we all have different stories, we share common hopes. Hopes to be able to raise our family, hopes to be able to provide the basic necessities. But I think the biggest common hope we share is how do we make our communities better and leave the communities a better place than when we found it? And with technology, we can do that.
There's a story that comes to mind. There's a community center in the 5th Ward of Houston that we work with, and it's an amazing place. They have a huge facility where they have computer classes. They have an amazing sports facility with a huge pool where they teach the community swimming lessons, and they have competitions there. The elementary school is right across the street, and you'd see the kids in the afternoon pour out of the elementary school and come across the street and go straight into the community center, so they had a safe place to exist in the afternoon, waiting for the parents to get out of work. And they had access to computers, they had access to the internet, and when COVID hit, they weren't at school, they were going home, they couldn't come over to the community center for after school programs. Their parents were working, they may or may not have had internet, they may or may not have had laptops or desktops to work on the computers to get remote access to the school. Even though the schools may have provided computer services, it wasn't something that was readily available for everyone. And then I think about my kids. We had a room for every kid. We had computers, we had internet, we had all the available services to give them a safe place to work and to do their schoolwork and not be fighting each other every day when they got bored with the schoolwork. And what was interesting to me when I think about that is the community center is mostly funded by the county along with grants and private funding. However, it was foundational to those kids' experience, and then in an instant it was taken away from them, and no one had control over that change. And I know that change won't be permanent or will be there in the future, but I think it's an opportunity for us to ask ourselves, okay, why do they not have that access, or what steps or decisions can we make to provide these resources to them in their own homes, or provide them a different opportunity so that they're not so reliant on this specifically separately funded facility. And I think that's interesting and eye-opening, because my day-to-day experience over the past year and a half was so significantly different from these kids' experiences. And so I think technology, I don't necessarily think that technology is gonna, if it's provided to them, is going to change them, but I think we need to ask the question, okay, how do we at least give them the opportunity to have that choice, to make sure that they have access with internet in their homes, or they have high enough speed internet, or that the local school is properly funded so they have the proper tools at hand, so that when they have to be pushed out, even the hurricanes hit Houston on a more and more frequent basis now, and it's significant for the community that the city of Houston floods on a regular basis. I have a lot of work there, and so I spend a lot of time there, and hurricanes do the same thing on a regular basis. So it's not just COVID that impacts them, it's storms like this. And so we have to consider, okay, what do these kids' daily lives look like, and how do we provide them with a stronger foundation closer to their home, or closer to the school that they may or may not be in because of a pandemic.
I'll be fast, but I would say right now, if you look at the census data, the future economic vitality of the Twin Cities in particular, but also nationwide, is at stake, and it's happening now. I think we thought we had a bit more time, and we don't. So if we look at the young people coming up through the school system right now and the percentage of BIPOC, we are not reaching out to those kids. We're not supporting them. We're not helping them realize the vision or get ready for the jobs of the future. And I'll tell you at Best Buy right now, our digital and technology business unit, we have 30% vacancy rate. We cannot find people to hire. And so this is a huge issue for the businesses in the Twin Cities, the businesses nationwide, and we have to start now. We have to do everything we absolutely can to reach out to those kids and get them ready for the jobs.
So why now? So, clearly the systems that we've been using to create development don't work, and all these visions that we've had reinforcing our community vision of development are broken down, whatever kind of system it is. So why now? I think it's the time to do lots of kind of experiments of a better vision that's more equitable, more sustainable, that'll work for everyone in the future. And we need to be experimenting with that in as many places as possible so that we find some solutions that work and then figure out how to replicate those at scale across the country. Because anyone, I think, who has a solution right now that they say can be replicated everywhere, forget it. It's too complicated. There's too many factors at play. We need a lot of kind of small scale experimentation to find long-term solutions. So it's a great time to be innovating.
I think the final sort of thought is, this is the answer to the classic question: if not now, then when? If not here, then where? And with George Floyd, with all of the attention that the metropolitan Twin Cities has, the fact that we proudly stand up and say we're worse than Alabama and Mississippi when it comes to disparities based on race. I mean, we are 50 out of 50. It tells us that if not here, then absolutely where else? And if not now, when forces have come together to bring attention, when there is energy around, how do we do differently? How do we make sure that everyone benefits? If not here, if not now, then when and where?
Beautifully put, Gloria. Thank you. We have a couple minutes here. I'm just going to open it up. If anyone in the room or anyone online has questions for the panel, we'll answer a couple here.
Yeah, we have an online question from Rachel Zipper. She says, I'm trying to bring people like Gloria mentioned into my steering committee for a cooperative rideshare. I've reached out to community organizations, but never seem to get through. Any suggestions?
Go to where they are, become a part of their community, make sure that it doesn't feel like I'm just there to use you, and when I'm done, I'm gonna move on. You've gotta you gotta answer the question, what's in it for them, for how long, and why? That's the best way to do it. Spend some time where they are, not come to me.
Can you use the mic, please?
Oh, sorry.
Thank
My name is Mo, by the way. For a young black guy from the community here in Minneapolis, and you create a solution that you think is going to impact what is going on. But the problem you're facing is assessing the decision makers around the city or around the big corporation, and you keep knocking on their doors trying to be where they are. How do you navigate networking with them and sitting down with them and showing them actually what you're trying to build or what you have or your product you have and how it can impact the way things have been going on and how it can, innovate what we're doing?
I don't have an answer for that, but I do want to just double back on that. And my friend on the end said it too. The barriers to entry are so high, like for access to capital, that it makes it impossible for everybody to participate. And then the knowledge of the information. I do development. but it's hard to find that gap funding to get some of these deals off the ground. So I think this is where technology can play a role. How can we disseminate the information? How can we make access to people much easier, to capital, and to the experts who can walk you through? I think that's where technology can really start to change the narrative for all of our communities. If anybody else wants to touch on that too, but I think that is a big issue. I run up against that too as an entrepreneur and a developer.
I think one of the ways to think about it, and I'm not going to purport to have the answer, but something to think about is don't necessarily assume that the top is where the decision is made. Understand the institution that you're dealing with and where in that institution decisions get made. The CEO, important person, but if the real person is, and I'll pick on Target, is not the best buy, but is the Target manager, hey, go to the store manager, have a conversation, get to know them. Say, hey, I've got this idea, this is how, again, the bottom line is always, what's in it for them? It's crass, it is not what everybody wants to hear, but at the end of the day, if you can't tell them what's in it for them, they don't care. Don't assume that the CEO is where the decision gets made. Don't assume that Representative Badunkadunks is the person you need to talk to, figure out who their chief of staff is, or who is the staff person that deals with the area that you want to deal with, and get to know them.